Welcome everybody to Pitch Please, representation in trans film and TV in the UK. Um, I'm so delighted to have on the panel Max Disgrace, Fox Fisher, and Miss Kimberly, aka Kim Tatum. My name is Campbell X, and I'm going to introduce myself, and then everybody's going to introduce themselves as well. Okay. I am an indie filmmaker. I made the award-winning film Stud Life, and I have directed 2 web series, Different for Girls and Spectrum London, and made a number of shorts, Desire, about trans masculinity and assigned female at birth, Desire, Visible, about queer people of colour, history representation, and now Still We Thrive, a film about Black joy and resilience. I am Black. I'm wearing glasses, and I've got a black shirt with and over it is a black kind of flannel check shirt, very queer, with a flat cap. And I'm going to go over to you now, Max, who's like next to me on the screen. Yeah, and I've got a septum piercing as well. Right. Okay. Let's
Hi, my name is
welcome.
Max Disgrace. I'm a trans man and I'm a film director. I'm part of BAFTA Crew and BFI Network 2020-2021. And I've directed short films so far. They focus on queer sexual intimacy and narratives around pleasure. My latest short film is called Ruptured, and it's featured on Boiler Room's 4:3 film platform. I'll do my visual description now. So I've got short, dark brown hair. I've got it slicked back, and I've got a parting. I've got a white shirt with a black vest, and I've got silver jewelry. Oh, and I'm Chinese.
Say it.
And yeah, I'm Chinese and light-skinned.
Thank you. Thanks, Max.
Thank you.
Fox.
Hi everybody, my name is Fox Fisher and I'm a filmmaker, but it wasn't necessarily my career choice to do so. I came out about 10 years ago and I realized I was coming out to a world that didn't really fully understand trans issues, and I feel that film is such a powerful medium to help explain what it is to be trans, whether that's documentary or fiction. So I picked up a camera in an attempt to feel better about my own situation, because I was on a documentary series that didn't fully tell my story. So as a therapy for myself, I decided to pick up a camera and start making films about people around me. So it was purely documentary around that time. It's about 9 years later now. So I have made a lot of films, and a lot of films on a budget of nothing or very, very low budget. And I've learned a lot as I've gone along, and with every project I learn more. Recently I've had a film called Walking Progress, which documents, it's a song that has it's a collaboration with the songwriter, and we film them before their top surgery and afterwards as they're dancing, and that's just been in the Frameline Film Festival in San Francisco, as well as we had 2 films in that this year, as well as We Dig, which is it's just a documentary about a theatre performance in London, which was really amazing. So I'm very proud of what I've achieved with a kind of core crew of other people as well. We're really proud to make trans content. So we are trans people making trans content for a wider audience. And I'm really happy to be here today. So a visual descriptor of myself, I'm half Indian, so I've got light skin, and my hair is black, and I have on a kind of flowery shirt. I've got a fairly chaotic background that I've tried to disguise with a kind of room separator with a trans flag behind me. And I'm in my art studio, which is where I make a lot of my screen printed art. So thank you. Happy to be here.
Thank you, Fox. Thank you very much. And Kim.
Hello, everybody. Hi, I'm Miss Kimberly, aka Kim Tatum. I am an actress and a singer. I've been acting for the probably last 30 years. I've done lots of television. I've done numerous plays. And I've just had the honor of working on 3 films so far this year. Still We Thrive, that was directed by the one and only Campbell X, and Polycitrus as well, which comes out later on in the year. I just finished the Vic in a piece called I Threw It, which was written by Travis Alabanza. I also have a company which is called Life, and it's basically highlighting trans art from fashion shows, performances. Yeah, that's basically me. I am a Black American woman, trans woman, and I come from Michigan. I've been living in the UK for the last 1,000 years, and I'm wearing a pinkish headscarf. I have on glasses, and I have on a dress that's black and cream.
Thanks, Kim. Thanks very much. Welcome, everybody. I think it's really good to acknowledge that we're here and we're creating stuff and we're in the UK, because everything tends to be very USA focused. And I want to try to keep it on a UK focus for this Trans Vegas. What I want to discuss really is what do we think have been the barriers to making trans stuff in the UK in terms of like film and TV for us as creatives. So I'm gonna go to Max first and can set it off.
Yeah, sure. Some of the first things that come to mind are that our stories might be considered niche, which seems to happen across the board with like LGBTQI plus stories in general. So either we get like pigeonholed into that like as a category, or maybe our stories don't get looked into because like financiers think it's like taking some kind of risk on like the story, whereas they'd prefer to play it safe. So I think there could be like potentially dismissals behind the scenes that we don't know about, which is also again harder to like counteract, because if you don't know it's happening, then like how can you do something about it? And then I don't know, I think maybe also in terms of like mentoring and support programs and things like that around it, there could definitely be more. I think like I personally just sought out my own mentors, like Campbell, you're one of them, and done that of my own accord. But I think maybe like younger people coming into the industry, or even anyone who's sort of a bit more in isolation from like the community, might not have that kind of access. And I think that sort of support is really like really needed to bring people in. So yeah, like more programs around that and people putting themselves forward as like being a mentor could be really helpful.
Right. And so Fox, what have you seen as barriers in a way for trans people working in the film and TV industry in the UK?
Well, I totally agree with everything that Max has just said. Just to add to that, I think that we really, just to dive right in there, I really think that we should look into institutional transphobia and look into transforming that from the top down, because I think that it's really hard for trans people to get funding and so forth, or to be connected to certain organizations where the people at the top have personal views about trans people. And I think we've noticed that in a few larger organizations recently. I think also it has been a battle for trans people to get trans roles, and that's what we've been really fighting for. But now we're in a position where it's really hard for trans people to get cis roles as well, and that's something that would, that to me is progress as well, where a trans person is playing a role and it's not necessarily about them being trans. So that's still pretty basic. And yeah, it just seems like certain roles are only ever given to certain trans people as well. So I'd like to see an expanse upon that, just to represent our broad community a bit better.
Yeah, and Kim.
Yeah, I totally agree with Max and Fox, but I think also a barrier that we face is the gray-haired cis or homosexual Caucasian male who are calling the shots. We need to step away from these people who are controlling our narrative. Visibility is something we need more visibility, more and more. You know, the Black community has just started actually finding a voice, more of a voice in theater and television. It just happened since George Floyd. I mean, you can look on television now and you see more people of color now. And I think, you know, unfortunately, it's with our community, it's just going to take more time, a little bit more time, but we are getting there with education and more visibility. You know, I think educating people is so important because I tell you a little story just really quickly. Basically I got a call to be seen for The Wiz, and which is coming to Manchester, the Hope Mill, and they sent the brief, and I thought, oh great, The Wiz. Well, I'm definitely not going to be seen for Dorothy, but I thought, oh, I'll be seen for the witch, the Wicked Witch, or the Good Witch. No, they want to see me for the Wiz, the wizard, which is no problem because the wizard can be played by male or female. But when I got the brief, it was the Wizard of Oz. He is very flashy. He is flamboyant, and also doubles up as uncle someone. And I thought, oh my goodness, you put out this big statement about how you are so open to all these different genders, and you want to seem so PC, but yet you want me to play a male character. So basically, you want me to go back. So I've transitioned for a reason, not to go back. So there's a lot of I can't pronounce the word I can't pronounce it. But anyway, but you know, this is another thing that you know, we have to be careful of as well. I'm not going back to play uncle somebody for nobody. I transitioned for a reason. So that's something that we have to be careful of. And so this is why I'm saying more education needs to, unfortunately, it's, you know, but it's taken the Black community years and years and years, and we're just now getting there.
Off of Kim saying, I'm just saying, off of what you said, you know, are we quite early in this that we're not going to see a change? You know, does either of you, Max or Fox, think that? Because, you know, Kim, you said, you know, Black people, of which some of us belong to that. We're queer and we're Black and we're here. But, you know, do you think it's a matter of time, and it's not going to happen now?
I think it's going to happen a little bit sooner than what the Black community has had to go through. And I'll tell you why, because everybody now is concerned about having more diversity and inclusion. So I don't think it'll take as long as Black community. I could be totally wrong, but I mean, the thing is it really is now about diversity.
As long as that's true diversity. Do you know what I mean?
Exactly. True diversity. Yeah.
And I was going to add to that, what we tend to see is there is diversity, but the roles aren't centered. So, you know, there will be a character, a side character who's trans or non-binary. But when it comes to centering our stories, that's the kind of journey I'm talking about. And I wonder what you'll feel about that happening. Because I can see, you know, there'll be these
Yeah, I think we're definitely getting there. That's my feel, that our stories have yet to be told for many of
Yeah.
us, and I know of some things that are in the pipeline that do center trans, the trans narrative. So I think, yeah, watch this space, because
Yeah.
it is going to be our time for sure.
Yeah. Oh, that's good to hear.
Good to hear. Like, what stories do you all want to see, though, apart from what's there, not there, what's in the pipeline? What stories do you want to see on film and TV?
Trans joy.
Yeah, that's a theme. But what, like, specific stories would you like to see? I have an idea, but
I would really love to see love stories, but more than that, I want to see history. I want to learn more about my history in trans film. I want to go back to like the 1800s, the 1600s. That's what I want to do. Because I think for me, I can't speak for everyone else, but to see something, a film that celebrated transness from that time, I think that's good for your mental health. It's good for your self-worth, knowing that, seeing that, yes, we were there and we were living a positive, fulfilling life. That's what I want to see.
yeah, me too. I'd love to see that. What about you, Max? What would you like to see?
Well, like from what Kim said, I'd love to see trans history as well. We've always been here, but we keep being told that it's just the beginning, that like, people just are starting to learn that we exist, and that we only existed for the last like 20 years or something. That's what we keep being told. So we need that, because we need to say we've always been here, our stories have always been here, our lives have always been here, for sure. And I think also I just want to see more like richness in characters and flawed characters as well. Like, I think it's like the palatable narratives right now is the transition story, and it needs to move beyond that, because we are so much more. We hold so much more, and it's like, what, does our life just stop once we've transitioned? And that's So I think there needs to be all the nuance of like how we exist, like in community, how we are in like relationships with other trans people, how we like heal within our communities as well, because there's so much healing to be done usually, like so kind of like seeing all of that basically. But I'm not interested in like having these kind of like sanitized stories, or like very palatable stories that can be digested and then like, oh, well, that's like a neat little package, we can move on. I want to see like the dirt and the grit and the sex like that as well, and like like non-binary and trans people's sexualities on screen, because this is also like very absent, it gets censored. It's the unpalatable stuff at the moment, and we need to see more of that, because it's like, we have lots of sex, like that needs to be on film.
maybe that's the fear. Going off on that though, Max, it's like and just throwing it out there, I tend to see only certain bodies that are represented as trans, and they tend to be quite binary and cis-normative. They tend to be young, and they tend to be white, on the whole. And I wonder if we also are guilty of that in our own work. So I was talking to you, Fox. How do you relate to that in some way? Are we representing? Are we guilty of representing, kind of narrowing the diversity even in our own work? So
yeah, I think that's it's always good to question yourself and think about that, because if you, let's say you have a trans person that you're creating content about, and another trans person might watch that, they don't necessarily see themselves reflected, because we have such a broad community and such a wide range of identities. So I think it's just the case of creating a lot of content and a lot of different stories. And you know, and talking about the historical side of things too, you know, I'm really obsessed with creating this story, or preserving a story called Inverness or Bust, based in the 70s. And it's a story, just a beautiful story about a bunch of trans people that went up to go see a doctor in Inverness, and who was kind and sympathetic during a time when no one was being kind or sympathetic. And you know, there's an opportunity for a documentary version and a fictional series for that. And when it comes to the fictional series, I just really would like to be able to cast much more diversely than the people who were originally involved, for example. So I think that there are decisions that you can make along the way in order to have one foot in the present and one foot in the past as well, and to have that to make those creative decisions is very exciting. So yeah, it's just about being really conscious of that, and kind of, yeah, like you say, kind of looking into it and just thinking, well, what am I doing here? Am I adding to the problem, or am I helping to expand the bandwidth? So hopefully it's the latter.
Yeah, I mean, it goes back to that question though: should trans people only play trans roles? And I think, do the trans actors only want to play trans roles? You know, so what do people think of that whole thing? Should trans people only play trans roles, or is the issue that we have cis people directing, writing, being in the production, in a trans production, and therefore casting cis people who are not the role of the trans person is the problem, rather than trans people only playing trans roles? I don't know what you feel about that.
I think, you know, when it comes to a cis director and they're hiring other cis people to play these trans roles, I think you lose the authenticity, because there's no one who's actually have that genuine lived experience. So you miss things, you know. I'm getting ready to go to workshop a play that I've co-wrote on, and it was very important. It was for me to have a trans director. I said to my producers, we have got to have this, because we need someone with lived experience. I had to really fight for that, to get that in the room, because it's just, there was a film that came out about Nina Simone, and it was directed by a white woman. Well, that film has just gone because you have this white woman who's gone and got a black actress who's of mixed race, and she did some things that was just unheard of, putting a fake nose and darkening her skin. Now, if that would have been a black director, that would have never happened. And this is why you need someone with a lived experience. There's a new play coming to, musical coming about the famous reggae singer, what was his name? Bob Marley. And what did they do? They hired a white director. Well, everyone kicked up a fuss, and now they got a black director. So it's so important to have lived experience for that, authenticity.
Right, but it's interesting that you had to fight to have that. And, and I'm just like, why is that a fight in a way?
Because, cis men, gay or straight, it's always a fight with them, because they basically, from my experience, they always want to have the last word. They always want to dictate, and they always want to do what they want to do. And this is why it was a little bit of a fight for me. There were, people, cis people, Caucasian, and some other ethnic minorities as well. They're so used to having things their own way, and also having someone of color, a black trans woman, tell them, no, we need to do it this way. That sort of fucks with their head a bit.
Yeah,
So
well,
this is the reason why there's always a fight. It's always a fight, because I realized that I am looked at as not really real, not really human, not really having a valid point. So this is the reason why I have to fight so hard. When I stand up to power, it becomes a problem. And then I'm looked at as the difficult one, the bitch, and all this. I've been going through this for such a long time. And since I transitioned, I've really noticed how Black women are respected. Now, Black women are, it's been said that Black women are the most disrespected women on planet Earth. But when you're a Black trans woman, that's even a different story.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that, Kim, because I think a lot of people don't realize that because of trans misogyny, particularly when we have Pose, which is American, we have no British equivalent here. And it's, you know, it's well said. I don't know.
It's very hurtful. It's very hurtful. And I've really been feeling it a lot lately. Really. It's been such a struggle for me lately. And I have got to keep strong. I have got to stay strong and keep on fighting and not letting them win. But it's very, very hurtful.
I hear you, Kim. I hear you very much. And I'm so glad that you said this, because, you know, we are, as Fox said, we don't have institutional support, you know, and very often people who are in positions of power in institutions may hold transphobic views we're not even aware of, you know, because so going on from that, I wonder if we can think through, because we've gone through you know, a lot of the systemic issues, some of which is, you know, trans misogyny, trans misogynoir, the kind of idea that our stories are niche and that thus not marketable, you know, maybe on a global scale. So they tend to be cis-normative in a way, you know, centering a kind of cis way of seeing trans, which is before you were this and now you're this, and now we can have you, you know, trans women played by a man, you know, or never mind trans men, they don't really exist. So except in documentary forms in a film festival late at night, you know. So how do we think, you know, things can change? The theme of this Trans Vegas festival is not for the likes of us, but for the likes of us. So how can things change to be for the likes of us, you know, where we can see things that have happened globally that have caused change? And we've seen a big, massive, you know, what they call a tipping point, whatever, in the USA. That's not really happened here. So how can we learn from them or other places in order to effect a change? So I'm going to go to you, Max.
Good question. I think, like, from what Kim said, you know, I think it's really evident that, like, we're not perceived or regarded in the same way with the same value that a lot of other people's narratives are. And yeah, I think that what needs to shift is really, like, overt championing of the work. And I think, I can't take credit for this idea, but a friend of mine was saying basically that what could be really useful is to have an initiative or like organization set up that's specifically funding UK trans films, because then from the get-go, we know we're not going to be like undermined with like our application process of like, we're not picked because we're trans. And then that would be a very like public statement to say like there is support for us, and it's not just like a one-off but there's some continuity there, because what I think can happen often, as well, just generally with queer filmmakers as well, is that probably not cis white gay filmmakers, but like everyone else, is that you'll like make one thing and then that might do well, but then no one's supporting you for the next projects. And then it's like, what, are you going to do a crowdfund every single time? Probably not. That's a really exhaustive process as well. So like there needs to be something more sufficient and long-term. And I think, you know, it would be great if organizations like the BFI did something like that, but we obviously can't. You know, I think there's a lot of like, there's so much like, so many structures that are really fixed in organizations that currently exist that I don't know if like the integration of something like that would work. But like if something was started up as its own entity, I think that'd be really good. But then it's always like finding who's going to do that, because basically like it probably could get like some sort of funding bodies behind it, but we as trans filmmakers are already pushed to the edge of like our energy and our time, and you know, and potentially economic limits of what we're capable of doing. We can't take on board another project so vast. The other thing is like, I think there's like a laziness with like both casting and finding filmmakers, whereby cis people are like, I don't know any trans people, so we're just going to have to go with a cis person. There was more cis people that made the application, so that's easy for us, like job done. And they don't appreciate the nuances that our lives and experiences bring. That's really evident. It's happened so many times in the past that cis people are cast as trans people, or like cis directors direct trans stories, or the creatives behind it are not trans themselves. So I think like, yeah, in spite of like not wanting to put more labor on us and our community, like I think something like having a roster is a good idea, like a roster of talent. I know there's already like some casting places already doing that, the Queer House and WIMP. So they're like specifically like trans and queer casting agencies. I'd like to see that in place for directors as well, like some kind of representation, or just more people who work within representation who are going to make a stand and like pick up trans creatives and represent them in a way that they're going to fight for us to get our stories told, because it will be a fight.
Yeah, it will be a fight. And I think the fight is economic, because when you think of it, a lot of casting is around star power. And, you know, can this person sell the movie? And there is no trans actor apart from an Americans now that can do that. So there's Laverne Cox, Elliot Page, yeah, and maybe some of the cast of Pose. You know what I mean? For like TV or movies, there is nobody in the UK who has that star power. So when you're thinking of financing, that's the hard, brutal truth. And it tends to be cis people, you know. I think problematically, it's cis people playing like, you know, a cis man playing a trans woman. I think it should be a cis woman playing a trans woman, not a cis man playing a trans woman, you know. Exactly. And that's never discussed, because people are into this kind of transformative narrative, whereas, oh, they were this and now they're this, so that's the story. That's the story. You know, not as Max said, we want to see more nuanced stuff, and we want to see post-transition. We don't want to see only stories about the transition itself. Do you know what I'm saying? So Fox, how do you think we can, you know, effect change? What ideas do you have? Think big. It doesn't have to be like, you know, be as big as you want, because this is where we, you know, decide things got to change.
It's a really tricky one because I've been told over the years, and particularly this year as well, that I'm too close to the subject matter. So I've seen a lot of cis people get funding to make projects about trans issues, and I've applied for a lot of funding. You know, you got to be in it to win it. So I'm always applying for stuff, and I haven't been successful. So I think something needs to change around that. I don't know what it is, but I think that people need to really get the message that we are not too close to the subject matter. We're actually the perfect people to make this type of content with authenticity, and people will be much more open and vulnerable as well, which it surely makes for better content as well, you know. So yeah, it's very, very tricky. I think that we really just need to keep connecting with each other. I think the fact that we're having these conversations is huge, because I don't think we have been able to, you know, over the years, I think we've just been treading water and just trying to survive. So I think some of us are finally at a point where we can either give back as a mentorship, or we can rally together in order to get things done. And I really love that idea of us having that power together by communicating and sharing, you know, information about whatever, you know, rather than us all vying. You know, just the idea of us kind of fighting each other for funding is quite sad, actually, when actually, you know, together I think we can achieve so much, and we'll be so proud of ourselves as well to be able to get through that. So I don't have any concrete solutions for this, unfortunately, but I think conversations like this is hugely important, and I want to see that continue. And to echo what Max was saying as well about having a roster of talent, and that's all part of that as well. So yeah, I don't want to be trans and tired. I want to be, you know, trans and excited about making content and helping to tell other people's stories as well. So yeah, let's keep it going.
I love it. I love, like you said, you don't want to be trans and tired. Well, we're not. We're trans and titillating. But you know, with our trans titles. Kim, what ideas have you got?
Listening to Fox about, conversations. We need to have more conversations. We need to have a group set up where we can meet online once every 3 months or whatever, and just discuss and just talk. And there's so many things that come up that you can apply for that maybe someone hasn't heard of. We definitely need that. We really, I gotta say, with the Black community in America, I do feel like the trans community, we need to take note from the Black communities. I remember when I was growing up, it was, well, basically, if you're not gonna let us in your country club, we're gonna start our own country club. And this is what we have to do. We have to do it ourselves. Yes, it's going to take blood, sweat, and tears, but that is the only way, really. I mean, because when you look at, the Black community in America are really starting to thrive. They have BET, Black Entertainment Television, they're producing and all these like amazing things that you couldn't get produced. And main culture in America. You have Tyler Perry. His studio is bigger than Hollywood now. And this is because they all came together and they helped each other. And this is what we have to do in our trans community. We have to stop looking and waiting for the cis person to give us that chance. No, we got to go and take it ourselves. Yeah. This is what we have to do. So
Kim's on fire.
We're gonna take it. I do realize, in America, they had, the one advantage they have is they have bigger budgets. It's a bigger country, but still, that shouldn't perturb us. We can still get there, but it's all about coming together. That was my Davis speech for the film world.
Power to the people. Yeah, you're right. And everybody, who's said something has said something that's quite achievable. Really, it's not so huge that it can't be done. Let's say in the next month. I think the thing about actually pushing into the mainstream is a whole other thing, because Fox, you said quite a deep thing actually about being told you're too close to the subject, which is in a way only a cis white person can tell you that, because I'm sure, honey, no black person told you that, because it comes from an idea of objectivity, which is only given to that question only comes up when you are yourself othered. So nobody tells white men stop making cis white men programs or whatever. But somehow they're never too close to those stories, and so it's actually, that's kind of really anger making, and that needs to be called out, because it is from a very cis-centric, white-centric point of view, actually. And I think a lot of ways in which trans is seen in the UK is not just cis-centric, it's also based on kind of old colonial ways of gender, white supremacist ways of seeing gender, which is very binary and Christian, and people are actually unaware that they're still being educated in that system, which they think is science, but it's not really science. Because if you actually know science, you know that there is a whole variety of genders, which, funnily enough, we're all people of color on this panel. So we've come from cultures in which gender historically was not binary. So we know that in a way. That was just me being kind of really shocked by what you said, Fox, because especially as you work in factual, a lot of documentaries as well, it's almost like saying you can't make the trans story, we'll make the trans story for you.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the whole reason I started making films in the first place, was to stop that. But 10 years later, we're still at that point where I'm still hearing that. So yeah, let's use that anger and yeah, drive things forward for us.
Yeah, I would say definitely. So speaking of which, does anybody want to share what they're actually doing now in terms of making trans-centered stories? Kim, do you want to tell us?
Well, yeah, I did mention
you were writing something.
Yeah, I did mention earlier that I had the great pleasure of co-writing a play, which is called Home Sweet Home. And I'm off to Salisbury next week to workshop it at the Salisbury Playhouse. And it is centered around trans and non-binary, also disabled, and also the cast is very diverse as well. It was important for me to have all that in there, because for me, I believe that everyone deserves to shine wherever you fit in on the color spectrum, disabled spectrum, whatever. So so that's basically what I have coming up next. And it's been eye-opening, because I'm not really a writer, but I had an idea. And my agent put me together with one of the writers that's on our the agency that I'm with. There's writers and directors. So, and he actually put me with a cis man, which has been fine, because he's taken time to learn and listen to me. So it's been fine. But if I do something like this again, which I probably will, I definitely, now that I have the experience, I definitely want to write with a trans character. So.
You mean like with you're trans, yeah, not an avatar, a trans avatar. Yeah. That would be funny. We can create one. And Fox.
Oh, gosh, I'm always working on probably too many different things, but this month I've never too many. This month I am helping out with Trans Pride, which I'm sure I'll see Kim at Trans Pride Brighton, which is the oldest Trans Pride. So I'm doing we're kind of pre-filming a bunch of stuff on, I think, this Saturday, and then I'll be editing it over the 4 days after that, just to get it in for the 17th. And then later this month, I'm making 12 short films with the Open University about, based on some research that they've done, looking just to try and help GPs to understand barriers to healthcare and so forth, and issues that trans people have come up against. Beyond that, in a more creative capacity, I'm working on 2 short experimental films that I've kind of pushed towards later this year, just because it's Pride season and you know how intense it gets, even if it's mostly online. I'm also I've written with my friend Lewis kind of like a comedy about transing the fish. You know, I don't know if you ever heard about that, but we got blamed for transing the fish a while back because of the hormones into the water. So I just thought that was kind of a funny premise to work with. So it's like a Bond film, which will be hilarious, hopefully. And then of course Inverness or Bust, which is we still have a GoFundMe, like GoFundMe/Inverness or Bust, and that's for the documentary first and foremost. And I'd really like to take another look at the writing for the fiction and maybe set up a writer's room. Again, no money, so I just don't know how to do this, but it's something that I still want to push forward with, and particularly with the documentary, because our contributors are not getting any younger, and I'm concerned about their health, and I just want to be able to do their story justice. So yeah, a few barriers to that, but still persevering.
That's a lot of really cool stuff. Thank you for sharing. And also, if we'll share the links via Transvegas. So if you send the links through, then we can put it through the Transvegas and the Trans Creative social media as well. That'd be really, So thank you. And Max.
Yeah, everyone's project sounds really exciting.
Right?
I just want to watch everyone's stuff now. I hope all of them get made really soon. So I'm currently writing a short film with a co-writer, Morgan M. Page, who's a trans historian, has a great podcast called One from the Vaults about trans history, so check it out. Yeah, so we're writing, so it's a T for T road movie folk horror. And it's basically, I think horror is quite a good genre actually for trans people to go into.
It's a good genre for
because
anybody
there's lots
to go
of
into.
horrors we experience. Yeah, and it's very UK because it's gonna have folk vibes and everything. The road trip's gonna take place going through England to Scotland probably. So yeah, quite excited about that. Also sharing 2 trans people, it's basically a date. It's like a road movie date. So yeah, showing 2 trans people being romantically engaged somehow, because I think we don't see enough of that either. So that's, yeah, I'm really excited about that. We're also working on a feature, but I'm gonna keep that on the down low at the moment. Yeah, so that's pretty much the main thing at the moment.
Great projects, everyone.
Yeah.
What's that, sorry?
And what do you have, Campbell, coming up?
Well, I've just finished the film, as you know. So I've finished the film. I finished a film called Still We Thrive, and Kim was in that film, and it's an experimental film with about Black joy and resilience, and it was for the Art with Impact organization. It was for their film festival, Voices with Impact, which dealt with Black mental health and immigrant mental health. And so in this film, starring Kim Tatum, aka Miss Kimberly, Martina Laird, Don Warrington, and Michelle Tiwo. I use archive footage to kind of explore Black joy and resilience in spite of white supremacy and the things that we've gone through. Because I have a feeling that very often, you know, same as in kind of trans filmmaking, there's an emphasis on our pain and not enough on our joy or, you know, gender euphoria. And so if I make a film that's trans focused, which I'd love to do, most of my films tend to be quite Black queer focused. Generically, it's the Black thing, and then I include trans and genderqueer. I've always done, but I've worked in the indie vein, not in the mainstream. So I've had that flexibility to do that. So if I'm making anything trans, it will be about trans intimacy, desire, and gender euphoria. Because I think, and things that happen once you transition, because I'm not so interested in like the trans coming out, because that's not the most interesting thing. It's all the things we have to negotiate, like through the healthcare system. And it's amazing that you're doing that, Fox, because I think so many healthcare people are, they're well-meaning, but they really don't get it. Don't get it at all, you know. And I think these are the stories that I want to see, and particularly UK-focused ones, you know. So, well, we've been speaking for an hour, and it seems like we've just started, right?
Yeah.
So, I'm hoping this generates like really interesting discussions. Thank you so much for your contributions today. Thank you, Max Disgrace, Fox Fisher, and Miss Kimberly, aka Kim Tatum. Thanks for coming and sharing and being so open and you know, caring as well, because it's good that we're here and we're thriving. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.